Mr. Speaker, is the Premier silent this morning on issues and real questions that affect cuts that his government has actually put in place? While we continue on this topic of cuts, would the Premier admit to cutting $25 million from post-secondary funding? I know a lot of university students who don't think the Premier is putting them first with that cut. What does the Premier have to say to those New Brunswickers? How does he explain to them that he is putting them first by taking $25 million from their funding? Will the Premier confirm the $25 million cuts to post-secondary funding for these students? Thank you.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, education is crucial to the future of our economy. It is crucial to the social fabric of our province, and that is why, Mr. Speaker, we are the government that has invested the most in education in the history of our province. And when it comes to post-secondary education, we are working hard to make sure it is more accessible, affordable, and that it is high quality. And Mr. Speaker, yes, we made some tough choices with regards to programs that were not meeting the targets that we needed it to meet to ensure that we had more accessible and affordable post-secondary education. Order. But we are very proud, Mr. Speaker, to have introduced tuition relief for the middle class and free tuition, allowing those that need the most support to get free tuition, and the middle class in our province to get the financial support they need to go to university and college, Mr. Speaker, allowing them to then work in our workforce here in New Brunswick, providing to our economy and ensuring that they help us grow here in our province, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, while we're on the topic of cuts, would the Premier admit to cutting $25 million? He doesn't talk about that he actually did make that cut, and I asked if he would admit that, and he hasn't. I would also ask on another case in the area of cuts. How many teachers and education assistants did the Premier cut in his first year? I believe the number was 302. Can the Premier also confirm from the House the daycare quality improvement funds that were cut he made in 2015? The Premier talks a lot about 2015. And they had protests on the lawn of the legislature, full of daycare operators and parents and children protesting that very act. The Premier remembered those cuts. I'm sure he did. Will the Premier confirm that those cuts were actually made, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, we've made it very clear that we are investing in education and in early childhood development, including in childcare, Mr. Speaker. Maybe the Leader of the Opposition missed it. We will be investing to improve affordability of childcare by giving families more financial support to be able to send their child to childcare. We're going to improve accessibility by creating more spaces and improve quality of childcare, Mr. Speaker. We're going to be doing this by investing $71 million over the next 3 years with the Trudeau government, Mr. Speaker, in childcare in our province. The Leader of the Opposition can then now lead by example and respond directly. I have a question for him. He has spoken this week about the LNG terminal's tax break, Mr. Speaker. I have to ask the Leader of the Opposition, does he believe that St. John was not giving up any of its current tax revenue at the time, and that the fact it was going to gain an additional $500,000 per year under the new tax rate was enough to validate that that LNG terminal get the huge tax break that it got at the time? If the Leader of the Opposition wants to be clear and concise, he can do it now.
Time. Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, cuts hurt. When the Premier bears with me and then confirm the list of cuts and closures I'm about to go through. Cuts and closures his government has made over the past 3 years. Cut in the bookmobile service, cut the Gagetown ferry service, closed service New Brunswick officers, St. Content, Port Elgin, McAdam, St. Leonard, Hopewell Cape, Gagetown. Closed courthouses, Grand Falls, Sussex, Grand Manan, St. Stephen. Closed schools, Browns Flats, Penfield, Lorne Middle, Coles Island. Will the Premier please confirm this long list of cuts that his government put forward, and now he's trying to buy his way out of it? Premier, these are actions your government took.
Please address your questions to the Chair. The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, les faits.
Mr. Speaker, the facts are simple. We are investing more in our healthcare system. We're investing more in education because it's important for the quality of life of New Brunswickers. What's more, Mr. Speaker, we're investing more in our infrastructure to create jobs and, once again, to help improve the quality of life here in New Brunswick. In addition, we're investing to make sure that post-secondary education is more affordable and accessible.
Not only things to grow the economy, but to do it in a way that it works for all New Brunswickers. Brunswickers. That's why we raised taxes on the 1% richest, Mr. Speaker, so we could then raise minimum wage to help New Brunswickers, offer free tuition. We could lower the small business tax, Mr. Speaker. We could ensure that we help our seniors by enhancing the CPP, and yes, invest in an innovative program worth $10 million over the next few years, Mr. Speaker, in Living St. John. A program that will be innovative and help reduce poverty in St. John that the Leader of the Opposition wants to cut, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, cutting strikes a chord, doesn't it, Mr. Speaker? Cutting services. Will the Premier please confirm the service cuts he made to the seniors in nursing homes? I am sure he remembers the one cutting nursing care ratios and food budgets and cleaning budgets. I believe there was also the year that the former health minister and current finance minister were out defending cutting $3 million from people in wheelchairs and orthopedic shoes. Does the Premier remember that, or is amnesia set in, Mr. Speaker? Will the Premier confirm these cuts? Will he answer to what he actually was doing all during this mandate, or has he forgotten all about that and now just more taxes? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, we've worked very hard with the people of New Brunswick to make some tough choices. Et à travers de ces choix, nous avons
And through these choices, we managed to reduce the deficit by more than half while investing more in New Brunswickers' priorities, which are education, healthcare, any things that will help us grow the economy. So that's what we achieved in 2015, 2016, and the projections are telling us that this will be possible in 2017. By working with New Brunswickers, we're getting results.
Wants to lead by example, like he says he does, then I ask him to answer this question, Mr. Speaker. Does he believe that St. John was not giving up any of its current tax revenue when it came to the LNG terminal tax break, and that the fact it was going to gain an additional $500,000 per year under the new tax rate was enough to validate the fact that there would be a huge tax break for the LNG terminal? Yes or no?